Hello everyone, good to see you all. Yes, a wave is great. I've taken the freedom here to mute everybody, just to avoid too much background noise. And I might have to do that a couple of times during the call, but feel free to unmute yourself if you want to say something. But just be aware that I'm muting everybody just to help you and to help all of us to keep the background noise level down. So that was the first bit of housekeeping. And I'm just once again, muting everybody here as you're all joining. Fantastic. We are almost here, everybody who registered. So I think we can kick off in half a minute or so. And while we are just letting the last community members into this call, I just wanted first of all to share another housekeeping note, which is we are aiming at a 90-minute session today. I saw that the calendar invite that you have received has allocated 60 minutes only in your calendar. But don't worry, if you have to leave some point during the call, you can do so, and the recording from this call will be sent to you by tomorrow, so you have that chance to catch up. So we're aiming at roughly 90 minutes today. And once again, a big warm welcome to all of you. I'm Lars, and I'm going to present myself in just a moment. But first of all, a warm welcome to those of you who are already registered as a community member and participant in the 12-week sprint that I'm going to introduce in this call. Also, a big and warm welcome to those of you who are here for the very first time to hear what this is all about and how you can get involved. This call is for all of us, and it is more than anything a community call. So the agenda for the call today is a couple of important items. One important thing is I'm going to give you a high-level introduction to what is a 12-week sprint really, and what are we going to do with that, and how can you be involved in that. Another very important part of our community calls is to hear from you, our wonderful community members and supporters, and we have the privilege of having a couple of very inspiring community members to introduce themselves to us later on this call today. I'm going to introduce them a little bit later when it's time for them to present themselves. So I want to get us started and give you a fair chance to just know just a few basics about who I am, because some of you know me very well, and others, for others, it's the first time that we get to meet. So let me just share my screen here. And by the way, the presenters today can also share their screen if they want to, if they need to, but it's not needed. So my name is, there we go. My name is Lars, and I have kind of put a stricket through my family name. It's not because that's not my name, it's because, just call me Lars, please. I am from Denmark, as you can hear from my Danish accent. And in Denmark, we tend to be informal, we tend to be open, we tend to be direct, at least that's what I like to think. And also, please just call me Lars. I'm I think we call it the initiator of Educate for Life, but Educate for Life is nothing without all of you and all the amazing support that you have been showing already. I come with a technology background, but I see myself as a coach and entrepreneur that builds exponential organizations for the benefit of humanity. That's how I like to introduce myself, and I have a purpose also, which is very important for me. It's my North Star, in everything I do. I like to see it as a massive and transformative purpose, which is about the resourcefulness that we all have. Resourcefulness for breakthroughs in every individual and team. That's what I would like to see in the future. Because we all have limited resources, limited time and money, and lots of excuses for not being able to actually execute our things. But we all have an almost unlimited amount of resourcefulness. And as a coach, I really enjoy tapping into that resourcefulness and letting you apply that on whatever you like to do. In this community is the future of education that we all gather around, and you're all here because of that, because you want to be part of changing how education is delivered and has been in the past. So we're going to apply your resourcefulness on the many challenges in this space. There's plenty to do. So when I talk about education, this is what I have in my head. This is what I see. And this is a stock image, as you can clearly tell. But I actually paid for this stock image because this is how I remember 9 or 10 years of my elementary school period. I had wonderful teachers, great friends, but I was really bored. I have to admit that. I admit it openly. It's not the biggest problem in education, right? It's maybe a smaller one. That was how I felt. I loved university. I could dive into what I loved to do, but this didn't really say anything to me. So this is how I remember education, at least when it comes to the first 10 years of my educational life. And then I received recently this photo. And this photo, to me, looks very much like the stock image I just showed you. It looks very much the same, except it's different because my son is in it. And my son is right here. This is Linus. And as you see, everybody else are very deeply engaged in their assignment work, very busy, working hard. Linus is struggling to even get the book open. It's not that he cannot solve the assignment, I believe. He's just feeling exactly what I felt when I was his age. So I kind of understand him. I couldn't really find anyone else that understood him at the time. Everybody said Linus has a problem, right? I don't think Linus has a problem because we changed his school. Other lovely people around him, other lovely kids, and so on. Suddenly he loved school, and which he does now, right? So he's thriving. He's loving it. Sometimes it is not what you think. And generally it's not the children or the adults that have a problem. It's how we organize ourselves, how we create systems around ourselves that we should be challenging. This is at least how I see it for a big part of it. I'm not only going to talk about kids, this is about adults as well, but just bear with me because other kids have other challenges. This is Lucas, this is my 8-year-old son. He has some bigger challenges, but he's a very bright learner, but he cannot thrive in a school environment as we typically see them. He needs a bit more quiet environment to thrive, and then he can achieve anything. Other kids have other challenges, but many kids are also doing great. Let's not forget that, right? There are kids and adults going through the education system that are doing really well. They are enjoying it. Let's not forget that. So I'm not here to say that education doesn't work. I'm just here to say that there are many challenges that needs to be discussed and addressed. And that's what I hope we can do as a community. Very briefly on the on adult education, we have done some research came up with a very long list of challenges, also based on articles, publications, conferences about it. We can come up with a very long list of challenges in adult education. I just outlined a few of them here. One of the big concerns in my life is the skill gaps between the skills we have and what the job market needs. If not now, then in the very near future. These gaps are growing and causing some massive challenges to both employers and employees. What are the skills that we must possess in the future, and how can we acquire these skills? Is there a way we can compare skills and abilities and knowledge today? As I understand it, this is challenging. There are varied frameworks for doing it, but is there a common domain for comparing skills and knowledge now and certainly in the future with new skills required? It's a question. I don't know the answer. And in some countries, education can be really expensive. In other countries, you can have affordable education and also expensive education. In some countries, education, also good education, can be really affordable. So we are not in the same situation. There are some regional differences here, but in general, it requires some resources to go through education systems. It's something also to look into. Also, the leaders of our education systems are challenged. They are trying to create change, at least that's how I see it, but it's really, really hard to make these changes possible. And then I just wanted, also as part of warming up this call, I really want to pay tribute to the many, many passionate and hardworking educators out there in many different roles, working with children and adults, being very, very dedicated to their jobs. We need the educators in everything we do in Educate for Life. And I just want to thank all of them up front here. It's very important what the work they do. Then, what you see here is from the front page of our website, and I just want to mention a quote that we came by Nelson Mandela, that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And we realize that there can be different ways of understanding this quote. The word weapon is not very positively loaded, if you like. But I tend to believe that this has a very positive, good meaning, and probably a weapon of some sort may be needed to create the change to education that we all believe is needed. So let's find out how education can be the way to change the world. It takes more than that to make the changes that we want to do. We also need the will to do it and the soul to dare. And I just very recently came by Stanley Park in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I came to this statue of the athlete of the century in British Columbia, Jerome, and I found this quote on the statue here, and I really liked it. It resonates with me because I know to change something which is really hard to change, we need a strong will, and we need to the soul to dare to do it. There will be many telling us that this is not possible, that we should not do it, and so on. But we dare, and we have the will to do it. So I got super inspired here, and I made a little video on our Facebook page about it. We have so much support from all of you, and again, I wanted to thank you all for that. Here's just a few of the quotes that we have received from a few of you about what you want to achieve as part of our community and as part of the sprint that I'm going to tell you about later. And you have been very kind to propose topics that we can work on throughout this sprint together. And I want to thank you very much, and keep the suggestions coming. On our website you can propose topics for our sprint that we can gather around. We can form teams that can work on different challenges in education. If you're interested in children's education, you can work on that. If you want to work on adult education, something else, that can be the focus. So we'll do team formation later. I'll come back to that. But we as a community, we're here to empower you, and it's you who can actually make the new ideas and make them come true. We give you the tools, and we give you also a 12-week process. We're going to facilitate and guide you through this process, all the way from ideation to bringing these ideas to life for the future of education. So thank you very much for suggesting topics and for being part of this. Now is actually a moment I've been really looking forward to since I met Raya in Vancouver. We had an amazing chat about how we see education, where education is going, what we like about it, what we don't like so much about it. And I get very inspired by when people actually take action and do something to change things. And Raya is one of the most powerful change agents that I have met ever. And she's operating in the space of future of education with her business Academy. And she's going to introduce it to you in just a second. But I picked up the line that it's a future-focused educational organization. That's what it's about. That's disrupting traditional high school curricula and inspiring students to bring about civilization-level change. And that's exactly what we need, Raya. So I want to welcome you and thank you for being here. And tell us more about Raya, and tell us why you're working in the future of education.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lars, for the beautiful introduction and for the amazing work that you're doing in bringing community leaders and action makers together. Give me a second, I'm going to share my screen here. It doesn't seem to be doing what I need it to be doing. Share. Please let me know if you can see my screen right now.
Yes, we can see your screen, Raya. Yes.
Thank you. So I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about myself and why I got pushed into the education space, but also tell you a little bit about the Academy journey and what we went throughout the ideation and how we ended up where we are. So I'm keeping in mind that I know a lot of people in this portal right now are thinking about launching their own education initiatives. So I'm going to do my best to give you a bit of the inside or background information as opposed to the front level pitch, just to give you some perspective on kind of why we made certain decisions. Well, before getting to Academy, a little bit about myself. So I'm Iranian. I grew up in the United Arab Emirates, Dubai for the most part, and I was lucky enough to be a young entrepreneur. So I was actually that token child that the education system really worked well for. I used to get straight A grades. My teachers loved me. I would always raise my hand and answer the questions. I graduated valedictorian, all of that. At some point in about 10th grade, my team and I decided to do something a little different. We were all science enthusiasts and technology enthusiasts, but we found that Dubai didn't have much of that science and technology culture in the general public. So we decided to do something about it and launched SciFest Dubai, which became the first science festival in the city. In the first year, we had up to 10,000 visitors at multiple venues and was featured in BBC World News. So it was an incredible entrepreneurial venture. Our mission was to celebrate science through the arts. And under that umbrella, I worked on Café Scientifique Dubai, which was an initiative to get people to come to a cafe setting and talk about science and technology over a cup of coffee. We've had over 50 events till now. And I also launched Intelligent Optimism, an initiative to get people to be more optimistic and excited about the future in a rational way. And Intelligent Optimism has over 500,000 followers on social media with chapters around the world. I went on to university to study neuroscience, where I continue to work on such projects and work on startups and work on initiatives. What is ironic is throughout this experience, as I started doing more impactful work, my grades started to drop. And throughout the experience of university, I found that at some point, I had reached a point where I was no longer reading or watching documentaries or actually making time for things that mattered. I was just studying to take tests and give exams. I found myself at rock bottom at some point when this love of learning had slowly been sucked out of me in this institutionalized system where I only had to learn for grades. Learned because there was a paper that I needed at the end called a diploma. I was learning in a superficial culture where no one's really talking about purpose and meaning and the impact-driven initiatives. And I was finding that it was just a pattern of stressing and cramming, giving the exam, forgetting it, stressing and cramming the next semester, giving the exam, forgetting it, with no purpose whatsoever. And I hated it. And for someone who always loved learning, that was just such a critical part of my identity that was lost. And it was just a very difficult time. And then the most heartbreaking thing for me was seeing how many students were going through similar experiences with very low mental health, with very little happiness, with very little meaning and fulfillment in the formal education system. So I was at a talk once by Luke Nozick, one of the founders of PayPal, and he said something along the lines of finding a problem that really pisses you off and then going about to solve it. And that really clicked for me. It was at that point that I really realized that I was, letting it overwhelm me, and I needed to channel my frustrations towards something productive. It was in many ways a coping mechanism. Now, as Lars mentioned, there's lots of different problems in education, and one organization or initiative cannot solve all of them. But for us, we narrowed down on a set of problems that we felt like we understood the best and we could solve most effectively. So for starters, we know that 65% of the jobs that middle school students today will be doing don't even exist yet. That's because new industries are being born, old ones are dying out, we're going through disruptive innovation. As Lars already pointed out, there is, the workforce is evolving. We're seeing growing demand for 21st century skills like creativity and critical thinking, and less for content knowledge and special expertise. We're seeing the rise of the imagination age and the creative economy, and with automation getting rid of a lot of monotonous routine tasks, we need more multidisciplinary and creative thinkers. We're also seeing a lot of student disengagement. As those images that you showed, Lars really pointed out, how many of our students actually come home from school every day thinking, wow, I'm so inspired, or wow, I'm so energized to learn something, to do something based on what I learned today. I'm so awestruck by this knowledge. Not enough students, in fact, most of them, don't come home from school feeling like that way. And we wanted to change that. So early on, my team and I, when I first started feeling these frustrations, I started speaking to my co-founder, Rowan, who's Director of Innovation at GEMS Education. He's an award-winning teacher, Global Teachers Prize finalist, and author on this topic. And together we started ideating what today has come to be Awe Academy. And I'll give you an overview of what we do and kind of the reasoning behind it as well. So what we are is we're a future-focused educational organization that is disrupting traditional high school curriculum. And we're teaching learners all the skills, mindsets, and values that are not covered in traditional education, but are critical if they're going to have a positive impact on humanity. Our mission is to bring awe and wonder back into the learning experience, but to also use education as a tool for positive civilization level change. Now, how we do this is predominantly through an online platform that gives learners the opportunity to learn interactive modules as per a micro-learning approach to do by working on projects and competitions, and very soon to be able to connect with other thought leaders. This gives you a kind of sense of the areas we focus on. We don't do courses. We do modules that take less than an hour to complete, anywhere between 20 to 50 minutes. They're interdisciplinary, so we don't do traditional subjects. And they're aimed at developing wisdom and developing fluencies and values as opposed to specific content areas of knowledge. So they can include anything from AI ethics to cultivating creativity to learning more about what makes you happy, coping with death, existential studies, what is the meaning of life, future industries, and so on. So lots of core areas there. And the reason behind that, I think, is generally clear. We found that high school students will not commit to a 7 to 9 week course. I think the drop-off rates with the MOOCs kind of speak for that. And we tried as much as possible to keep it interactive. So each of these modules on the platform, of which there are 130, includes activities and exercises and self-reflection tasks. So it's not just a passive learning process, it's an active learning process. We didn't want students to just learn things. We didn't want them just to take information and interact with it. So one of the questions you will get asked, and we always get asked, is how are you measuring the impact of the lessons we're learning? And obviously there's lots of qualitative and quantitative ways that you can gather data and measure impact, but we see this as the best way, which is what the students go about to do and create as a byproduct of their learning. So on the platform, we also host a range of projects and challenges that inspire students to be creators and inventors and doers in a variety of ways. And we are hoping that this would be the main way that we measure the impact of what they've learned. Now, throughout all of this, we noticed another problem. So, we started working with the learners and working with schools and education providers to get this out to the learners and young high school students. But throughout that, we found that there weren't enough teachers that had the skills and values and mindsets to develop these curriculums or to actually lead them with their students. And this is when we first started realizing what kind of a wicked problem education is, because you have the problem with the students and you have the educators and you have the industry level. Like there's multiple layers of regressive thinking and multiple layers of traditional mindsets and lack of right skills throughout. So it's one of those wicked issues. So that's where we also launched an educators portal in parallel to the learners portal, where teachers could access cutting-edge, trainings materials on things like STEAM and education, which is in arts and STEM, creating cultures of innovations in schools, the impact of different technologies on the industry, and so on. And these are all CPD certified, so all the educators can get credits for the work that they do with us. And then we noticed the third layer, which was that not enough industry-level experts were up to scale with all of this. Now, the issue with any alternative or supplementary education, whether it's Academy or a project you're working on, is that people will only buy in if they realize why it's important, right? If you're selling to an audience that doesn't realize where the future trends are headed, that doesn't realize the limitations of traditional education, then they will not buy into your platform and product. So, we also ended up doing a lot of consulting and a lot of training sessions for management teams around the world, especially in education, because ultimately they're deciding where the budgets go, and ultimately they often end up being a barrier to change. So that's the third kind of parallel offering that we have, but still a lot of focus on the learners material. Naturally, monetization is one of the hardest things in EdTech. What we've done is a freemium subscription model where we've done a lot of volume packages with schools and education providers with obviously one-off payments for workshops. That being said, we do offer free access to any students or schools that can't afford to pay for the platform. So we've been doing that throughout. But we found that really adoption at scale has come best by having that B2B model in education, and predominantly working with private international schools in the beginning, and then going later on to the district level or the public school sectors. Because you will find that the public sectors are the hardest ones and ones that take the most time to tap into. Just to give you a general early, successes that we've had. And I hope that these will also provide as resources that you can tap into in terms of, getting some traction with your initiative. So we've been shortlisted and we're currently running as a finalist for multiple awards, including the Next Billion EdTech Prize, Global EdTech Startup Awards, Meta Awards, Reimagine Education Awards, and many out there, which has been amazing in lots of different ways. Earlier this summer, I was invited to the Y20 Summit, which is an initiative of the G20 Summit to speak about the future of work and education. We have also been invited to join Area 2071, which is an incubator space under the UAE Prime Minister's office. So we have the UAE Prime Minister's office support. And in Vancouver, where I am right now, we are part of Spring Accelerator, which is an impact-driven and mission-driven accelerator. Just an overview of the team. I am not a lone wolf. I would not be able to do any of this without an incredible team that we have in place. My co-founder, Rowan, we worked with us at Dubai Science Festival together, and he's also innovation leader at GEMS Education, the largest provider of private schools in the world. Our CTO, Keith, is based out of Boston, and he's a serial entrepreneur and amazing with the technology. And as you can see, we have a remote, decentralized team of global innovators. I want to end on another note. Generally, we talk a lot about preparing young minds for the future. We talk about trying to predict what the future industries will be and what the future skills will be, and then preparing them for that. And yes, that's very valid. But what we also want to do is to prepare learners or young learners to create the future. In the words of Buckminster Fuller, we are called to be the architects of the future and not the victims. The future isn't necessarily set in stone. It's not guaranteed to be amazingly positive, and it's not guaranteed to be a dystopian either. It all comes down to the kind of decisions we as human beings and as leaders make. And what we're aiming to do is equip young minds with the right values, future fluencies, and core competencies that will allow them to create a very exciting future for humanity. So that's all with my presentation. I am going to leave my email in the chat and stay around for the rest of the call. So if you see any ways of collaborating, if there's any way I can help support your initiative, please don't hesitate shooting me an email. I genuinely believe that real change will come from a paradigm shift of many organizations and many companies working towards a common vision. We cannot do it by ourselves. So I am very excited to see what initiatives stem out of the sprints.
So thank you so much, Raya. Very inspiring. And I have one question to you before you close your microphone and before I introduce our next speaker today. My question is for you to give the best advice you can think of to our fellow community members here before we get started on maybe a journey similar to what you've been through. You've been very successful in going from identifying a problem and actually doing something about it. What do you wish you had known earlier, or what would advice be to community members that are first now coming together in teams and starting to work on a problem?
That's a great question. I want to go with two things. One thing that I think played out really well for us is taking a student-centered approach and taking a scientific approach. So our platform has gone through maybe 5 or 6 iterations at this point. And I think those iterations would have been even less if we had, we did this, but even more of having students test out a version of the solution, give their feedback, or teachers or whoever the stakeholders are, give their feedback, see if it's working, and then design it again. So that whole lean startup approach of, the design thinking approach of making sure you're constantly testing and don't make any assumptions. Because you might think that a certain solution is more impactful, but, the market or your user base might actually suggest otherwise. So that's the first one. And the second, I think, we would not have grown so quickly if we didn't have such a strong network in education. My team and I had worked with schools, high schools, teachers, principals for at least 10 years before we launched this. And we would not have gotten that adoption. So even if you don't know what your idea is yet, go to the conferences, reach out to people on LinkedIn, go to the events, build your education network, because it is an archaic network in that you cannot just social media market to principals. You can't just get adoption by sending mass email marketing. Like, you really have to know the people and have the relationships in place with the stakeholders in education if you're going to have any impact. So network away, build as many relationships as you can right now. Yeah.
That's amazing advice. Thank you so much, Raya.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for inspiring us. And Raya will be staying on the call and leaving her contact details. Put questions to Raya if you want in the chat box here in Zoom, and we'll catch up with you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you again, Raya. I just wanted to add one thing to these amazing pieces of advice. That would be, let's inspire each other, right? And this is the point actually of inviting Raya and also our next speaker here. Is to open our mind, is to let us think freely about the education at a big scale and at a high level. And if we get inspired by each other, I'm sure our path to finding the right problem to solve will be a lot easier to find. For some, it's very clear. That path is super clear to many, and to many others, it's not clear yet, but we're all attracted around the same general theme, which is the future of education. So let's inspire each other, and Raya certainly inspired me a lot here, and I know that she inspired everyone here. Another of our fantastic community members and supporters is our next presenter, and I'm just going to share a photo of him, but you will see him, I think you can all already see him live. So let me just share here my screen. Please bear with me while I'm getting the technology to work for me here. All right, the next speaker today is also someone who blows my mind every time I listen to him. So before I introduce him, I'll just say that after Jerry, I'm going to walk you through what our 12-week sprint looks like, right? So stay tuned, but this is, Jerry keeps inspiring me, and he blows my mind. And Jerry talks about trust, which he has done for many years, along with other topics. But also Jerry has been spending several decades now actually building the world's largest published brain, at least to my knowledge. It's quite an achievement, and it's very inspiring to go online and find Jerry's brain. I couldn't fit in everything that Jerry has done in his career onto this one slide, so I'm going to let Jerry Michalski pinpoint what Jerry thinks is the thing that we should hear today. And what I'm really curious to hear is, Jerry, how do you see education? Where do you see it's going? And where is it not going, but should be, in your opinion? And what can we do about it? So, Jerry, over to you, and thank you for being here.
Lars, thank you very much. I'm hoping I'm a late bloomer, because I don't know that I've achieved nearly as much as Raya has already. Raya, I'm in awe. I'm awestruck by Academy and the work you've done, and the other things you've already put in the world. It's really fantastic. And I think you'll see that it resonates a lot with things that I'll say and places I'm headed. Just for context, I'm a certified EXO coach. So Yaroslav put me through the virtual sprint. I've been to multiple EXO events. I was part of the EXO Foundation, helping design some of the things that were sort of that are in use here. I'm not part of the early crew that actually designed the sprints and wrote the book and all of that. And as Lars said, my focus has been trust. This trip started for me 25 years ago when I realized I did not like the word consumer. And I followed the word consumer for a long time until I sort of tortured it and twisted its arms until it released its secret to me, which was that the real linchpin in the middle is trust. That that we've lost trust in institutions, we've lost trust a lot in one another. This group convened here is a very high trust group for a variety of reasons each of us could probably describe, which is why it's lovely to sit here and talk with you about this topic. But trust has turned out to be the thing that I can sort of go into any domain of life and start talking about it. And education happens to be a real passion of mine, even though I have no kids and I've never taught. I mean, I taught a little bit at the new school, but really I've never taught. So why do I care so much about education? And I got radicalized on this many, many years ago when a friend of mine sent me an essay by a retired New York high school teacher named John Taylor Gatto, G-A-T-T-O, and the title of this essay was The Sixth Lesson School Teacher. And I'll get to that in a second, but hold that thought because I want to get there by showing it to you in my brain. So what is this brain thing? I just put 2 links in our chat. The first one, jerrysbrain.com, haha, it will take you to an explanation of what this mind mapping tool that I'm using is. And there's a link in there that says Launch Jerry's Brain. If you click on that link, you can go browse my brain for free. The brain is a mind map. I did not create the software. There's a little company in Los Angeles called The Brain. So thebrain.com, if you want to make your own, go to thebrain.com and install the personal brain and go crazy because it's pretty fun to use. I don't believe that everybody in the world should be using it. But I've been able to feed one mind map for 21 years. So we are now in December of 2018. This is the 21st year. So December 21 years ago is when I began using this software because I was a tech industry analyst back then, and they were one of the 4,000 different startups that pitched me on what they had. And I saw this and I'm like, well, this is kind of how my brain works. And I started using it. And the mind map that I'm going to start showing you now by sharing my screen is basically the same data file that I started back 21 years ago. So what that means is what you're looking at here is one big mind map that has about 380,000 nodes in it. Each node is called a thought. These nodes are connected to each other through these 3 little circles called gates. And there's a left gate here, but there's nothing to Lars's left because I actually don't know his spouse's name. But I did put Lucas and Linus down here. And I actually added, while he was presenting, I added his MTP, Resourcefulness for Breakthroughs in Every Individual and Team. So I've been editing as we did this. And this particular, we're in the launch call for the Educate for Life virtual sprint. So I've put this in my event schedule as a virtual sprint under the general topic of rethinking education. And as you will see in a moment, and because I'm running Zoom and my brain and too many tabs open in Chrome, my machine is a little bit slow. But I think it's working. Tell me in the chat if you're not able to see what I'm showing you. But here's the general topic of rethinking education. And I've become, as I said, so John Taylor Gatto, I can basically jump to any thought in my brain by typing in, I click on the background and it starts searching, and it searches through, I don't have to fully spell his name, but if I wait just a moment, it'll pop up John Taylor Gatto's name, and then I can jump to any place within these 380,000 thoughts. There we go. Well, this is taking a lot longer than it should, and than it did in a similar call this morning. There we go. Finally. And he just passed away this year, Gatto did. So he was a New York high school teacher who one day said, hey, look, nominally so here's John Taylor Gatto in my brain. This W means that there's a link to the Wikipedia page for him. If I click on the W, it'll launch my browser to that page. But since my machine is a little bit slower, I won't do that. The essay that he sent, that my friend sent me, was this one, The Sixth Lesson School Teacher. And he said, look, nominally I was your kid's high school English teacher, but let me tell you what I was really teaching them. I was teaching them to turn off when I tell you to. I was teaching them that they're being watched all the time. I was teaching them to surrender their will to a predestined chain of command, to stay where they belong, that I'm God in the classroom and only I determine what curriculum you will study. He was teaching them what's become known as the hidden curriculum of school. And he's one of many, many different people who've contributed to this notion of the hidden curriculum of school. And the hidden curriculum of school is that faster kids are smarter, for example. The kid who raises his or her hand first is somehow smarter, that kids who take longer to answer questions on tests are somehow dumber. That you can't ever be trusted to be by yourself someplace. You always need a chaperone or a hall pass or a hall monitor or somebody responsible in front of you, etc. And this, along with a whole series of other ideas, sort of clicked together in my head when I realized that the compulsory education system has been designed from a mistrust of children and their parents and their communities, because we don't trust that kids could actually learn on their own, that they're curious by nature. And all you have to do is look at your average 4 or 5-year-old and figure out the many times that they ask you why about anything. And you know that like we're wired to learn, we're born really curious, we're eager to figure out what is our role in society. So somehow, and it's a long and interesting story how, we ended up designing a system that coerces us to learn, that forces us into one-year cohorts, which is a dumb creation of scarcity where there could be abundance. And I have a ton of different lessons that I've learned from studying the school system that then it turns out were very common to other systems, where I could look out across the agriculture system or traffic and transportation management or whatever. And I'll take you to a thought, except I didn't, there we go. I'll take you to a thought that where I collect up a lot of these stories. If my brain will just work quickly enough. I think I'm about due for a reboot here. There we go. Examples of the relationship economy in action. And you'll see that there's things from the gift economy to free-range parenting to crowdsourcing and crowdfunding to collaborative proactive solutions to policing by consent. These are the bobbies in the Metropolitan Police in London, who were called bobbies because they were named after Robert Peel, who is the author of the Peel Principles, which are about nonviolent policing. So here's Robert Peel, here's Sir Robert Peel's 9 Principles of Policing. All these things are in context in this one mind map, which you can go browse. Unfortunately, this mind map is not very good at collaborating. So here, for example, are Sir Robert Peel's 9 Principles of Policing. The basic mission that police exist is to prevent crime and disorder, blah, blah, blah. This is under one of my favorite thoughts in my brain called enumerated wisdom. So anywhere I've run into the four cores of credibility, sorry, the 3 R's for avoiding child predators: recognize, resist, and report. 3 rules of the tipping point, which, as many of you probably read a decade or more ago, comes out of Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point: The Law of the Few, the Power of Context, the Stickiness Factor. So I'm really interested in education because I think that schools are struggling to break free from a really strongly reinforced system that is designed to shape children, because governments around the world figured out that the quote, the Mandela quote that Lars showed earlier, can be seen both ways. Education is the most potent weapon. Also, every philosopher knows that if you can grab children young and indoctrinate them in your way of seeing the world, you can own the next few generations. So we have to be really careful about how this all works. And in particular, the thing that troubled me and inspired me was that we are all naturally curious and want to learn, that we are busy trying to figure out how the world works, but we're distracted, we're addicted, we're sort of subject to all sorts of systems that are designed from mistrust of the average person. So they eliminate scarcity, they eliminate abundance that is naturally present, a whole series of things like that. So I'm interested in the context of this Educate for Life sprint in figuring out how might we create scaffolding that any ordinary person could use to learn anything at any time. And here, I think that the sprint concept of edge and core initiatives really is interesting to me, because I'm interested in both. But as you might be intuiting from what I'm saying, I'm more interested in going outside the official school system and seeing what can be done there than in trying to reform, improve, change the school system itself. And I know many people who've beaten their heads against the school systems of the world trying to make a dent, a few of whom have made a dent, but most of whom have really struggled and suffered. So, for example, there's an educator named John Holt who's who's dead now, but wrote a series of really good books about this. And he made a distinction between capital S school and small s school, and a capital T teacher and a small t teacher. And the capital T teacher is one that you are given and you cannot get rid of, and you must take class from them. A small t teacher is somebody who can teach you something and you are there voluntarily, and this is a fantastic setup. And the difference between these is sort of coercion or compulsion or lack of trust or something like that. Anyway, I could go on for a long time around all these topics. I will stop, but I'll say that I'm really interested in participating here. I'd love to be part of a team or attract a team that wants to figure out how to build scaffolding for learning that doesn't necessarily have to have much of a strong business model. It could have many ancillary business models, meaning there might be sub-industries of tutors or other kinds of resources that get built out around this. But the thing in the center should be more like Wikipedia and less like some expensive university. Feel free to ask me questions in the chat. I can add a couple more links, et cetera, et cetera.
Fantastic, Jerry. Thank you so much. You blew my mind again. In addition to being able to ask you questions, which I encourage everybody to do here in the chat, you can actually tap right into Jerry's brain, right, which is quite remarkable. And I've personally found many interesting resources in there that can be both of inspiration, but also very useful in a practical implementation of a certain idea or initiative. Also when it comes to EdTech, but also so many other areas. So thank you so much, Jerry. And yeah, most of you are already in Jerry's brain. And I'll do my best also to fill more into my name in your brain there. But I'm very impressed with what you have been there already. So I see comments already coming to you, Jerry, so I'll hand over to you to move into the chat box. Thank you, Jerry, and feel free to jump in again later if you feel like it. Same with Ryan. So in the interest of time, it's time for me to introduce you to the 12-week sprint. What is this animal all about? How does it work? Now we got inspired, we kind of opened up our mindset to the many opportunities there are for us to do something about education, to create change, to design the future of education, right? The inspiration bit is there, thanks to Raya and Jerry. We also have a process that takes us from inspiration through ideation to the creation or solving, and then initially to present our ideas, our initiatives, and our products or services, and hopefully at the end of this, get to the market. And this process is all yours in the sense that you don't need to understand it yet. We still have a long preparation period before we start the sprint in February. I'll get back to this. But I'm going to give you a very high-level introduction to the process behind the sprint, how it works, and also how you can get involved. Right? There is so much more to be presented and described and introduced to you. But it's not all going to be covered today on this call. But feel assured that because you're here and you have signed up, we'll keep sending you nuggets of inspiration and also more information step by step, so you know exactly what to expect and how you can contribute and what it takes to be part of this, right? So let me give you a high-level introduction. And I'm going to share my screen again and see if I have better luck this time doing it. I feel good about it, so I think it's going to work out fine. Here we go. So the first introduction to the Educate for Life sprint. At a high level, I can see my animation is not the best, but the first point that I want to make here is that we're going to work in teams. If you want to be part of this sprint, and I hope you will, we need everybody, we need all your ideas, your brain power, your different approaches, your different backgrounds, and so on. We need all of it to establish some high diversity teams that will collaborate on designing the future of education. Right? We're coming up with new ideas, and we're doing it in teams. Everybody get to work on problems that they're passionate about. This is very important for me personally, to work on passion projects. Educate for Life is my passion project. It's one of many, but it's my biggest passion. And I want you to propose what your passion projects are related to future of education. And we're going to invite everybody in our community and outside for that matter to work on these particular passion projects. Right? So if you propose a project, we're going to announce it and see if we can build a team around it of everybody needs to be passionate about solving that particular problem. So this is step number one. And as a team, you will be working together during the 12-week sprint period. And a sprint, there are, not for everybody, this is a known term actually. It's a time-limited period where you work to achieve a desired outcome, right? That's how we define a sprint. So in this case, we have 12 weeks to do it, starting in February, working as a team. And it's all about collaboration. And you will get to see later that we collaborate also across teams. The second point I want to make is related to this. In the beginning of the sprint, all teams are researching. This is where Jerry's brain will be an amazing resource. There are many other resources, some resources that we are sending to you, recommending that you read these books or watch these videos and so on. You will also be doing your own research as a team. And in this particular sprint, in Educate for Life, all research done is being pooled together, all accumulated, and it's all available to everybody. That means that we have the power of our network and a very fast-growing repository of research that you can use to be inspired, or you can use when you actually decide to work on a particular passion project. So research is available to everyone. Teams, across teams, actually they review each other's ideas and initiatives. And it's a collaborative effort. There are no competitive elements in this. If you want competitiveness, we can introduce some prizes and awards, and we have some sponsors, very supportive sponsors, that will also introduce some prizes and awards. So there might be some competition there, but this is a collaborative effort. I believe that it takes our whole community to actually achieve a realistic new future of education. I think we need to collaborate to achieve what we hope to achieve. And some teams will get to market before others, and some will decide this initiative is not for them, this is not for the market, and they might shut it down. But as a collaborative effort, we are improving our chances to succeed, and that success is what I hope for everybody. And we are here, as I said, to empower you and to achieve as much as we can throughout this process. We are also inviting various types of investors to observe the whole process, to observe what each team is working on. Now, I just want to make sure to be very clear about all your work will be anonymous in the beginning, so you can trust that you can fail, you can get feedback on work that you may not feel super proud about, and all work is like that in the beginning, right? Things have to evolve through many iterations, small iterations, but rapid iterations. We use each other, but we also use different types of investors who are interested in the edtech space and the future of education. We invite them to see what's being worked on, right? And but at some point, you will not be anonymous any longer. If you choose to move an initiative forward to actual implementation during the sprint, and I hope everybody will, but it's up to you. You decide. Only you decide if you want to move forward. You will no longer be anonymous, and then you will start to see that you can interact with investors if you think there's a match, and if the investors think. In the beginning, that means they will probably provide advice, they will open their networks for you for whatever you need, and hopefully at the end of this 12-week sprint, there may be an investment opportunity waiting for you. And no guarantee, it's all about, is there a match, is the value proposition you bring in of relevance to the investor, and vice versa, are they relevant for you, right? Just to share that we bring in many different people who are all interested in the space. You also have access throughout the process to coaches, to advisors, and we are using sponsorships to finance this sprint. And the sponsor money will be used to give each of you, each team, access to coaching and to advisors on any kind of topic that you need to seek advice on, right? There's a limited free access, however, it depends on the sponsorships. So we are still working on taking in more sponsorships. The more we take in, the more access we can provide free of charge. That is the goal. And if you want additional support from coaches, advisors, something you as a team will need to pay for separately. But we can get back to this later on when we start to prepare you for the sprint. So there are different resources available to you as a team. There's a lot of research, some of it that you will do by yourself. There are other teams in the sprint that will be supporting by reviewing your material like you are reviewing theirs. There will be investors, there will be coaches and advisors. A lot of good people, and actually each of you can play any of these roles if you find that's the relevant and right role for you to play in this sprint. More than happy to work with you to find the right role for you if you're in doubt. But you can sign up on our website, you can register your interest in any of these roles, and as we get closer to the kickoff of the sprint in February, we're starting the team formation and helping you to get into your role. All right, so the participants, and that would be you, suggest your own sprint themes. And we have already received quite many very interesting themes that a sprint team can be working on. It's up to you what you choose to work on, but for inspiration, we keep posting these themes on our website, so please check in on the website from time to time. The topics you see on the screen right now, just a few of them. A few of the topics that have been proposed. Some are for children, some are for adults, and some are for maybe a technology approach, or something entirely policy approach, or something else. We will be doing everything we can to support you as individuals and as teams throughout this sprint. We know from experience that support is super important. Also we want to make sure that you are able to identify everybody in our community, so you can reach out and have a chat, say, hey, we're working on this. We know that you have been doing something similar, or you have some inspiration you could share with us, so to help you to understand what our ecosystem and what our community looks like, we are offering you access to a network map that we will keep updating. I'll show you in just a second what it may look like. But to be able to do that, we will be sending you from time to time a survey asking you who have you been working with, and it's optional to fill this and send it back to us, but we strongly hope and encourage that you do it, because it's a way to help all of us to map out our community and the resources that have been valuable to others, make them available to you as well. So you'll be getting surveys from time to time, and we ask you to fill them back, and what you get back is something that might look like this, a network diagram of our community. Also the extended network around us, people that are not involved in our Educate for Life sprint, but are providing support or something else to someone in our network. And if you choose to share who they are, we can, add them to the network map here and make them visible, and thereby understand how can we improve the innovation effort that we're all putting into this. How can we easily get access to the right people to support us on our journeys to success. Now I want to walk you through here at a high level the 4 stages to designing the future of education. These are the 4 high level phases that we all go through. And don't worry, take it easy here. I'm going to facilitate every step on the way. You don't need to read things on the screen here. You don't need to yet understand every part of it. You're going to be guided step by step through the 12 weeks. But it's to give you a high-level overview of what this looks like. The first stage is the awakening. The awakening is very important because it helps us to realize what has happened in the world since we last checked. And it's a lot generally. New technologies maturing very fast, new ways of implementing them, new business models, new teams popping up, doing amazing things, and so on. So at a later stage, I'm going to walk you through in more detail what this includes. But there's going to be a lot of inspiration, and some minds will be blown, as a disclaimer. Spoiler, your minds may be blown at this stage. And that's the whole purpose. We need to realize that there's so much we don't know that's going on, and that we can leverage, that we can take advantage of, and that can inspire us to do even more impactful things together. This leads us into the ideate phase. The ideate phase is where we start coming up with ideas together as a team. We discuss ideas to solve different challenges in education, and to be able to figure out if an idea is good or not, because I cannot tell you, but experimentation can show you. We'll share later how that works. You can experiment with your ideas. You can test your ideas. You can test them on students. You can test them on teachers. You can test them on families. Bypass education systems entirely. Go straight to families to test your ideas. You can do many, many other things. We're going to help you here as well on how this is done. And the most important thing here is to learn from your experimentation. That learning is what tells you if an idea is good or not, and if you want to proceed with your idea. If you want to proceed with your idea, you will be starting at the 3rd stage, which is named solve. Now, solve is where you start to actually build something. You're building prototypes, and you're building prototypes of your best ideas, the most validated of your ideas, the ideas that you really want to bring into life. You're building prototypes because it gives you so much better experimentation. It gives you much better validation of your idea. You can let users of your idea, of your product or service, try out your offering. Not about listening to your sales pitch anymore. It's about actually trying out what you have to offer and give you even better and more qualified feedback on it. So it's a very important stage. It's a stage also with a lot of work in it, and it takes effort to get through this process, and it's so worth it. When you have come through the solve stage, you have learned a lot from your users, from the feedback they're giving you. You have been iterating again on these initiatives. It's time for the accelerate stage. This marks the end of the sprint, and this is the time where you come up with your final pitch, final and best pitch during the sprint. You'll be pitching to investors and other good people who will provide you with feedback and potentially support you, choose to support you, choose to invest in you, perhaps, let's hope so, if that's what you want. And also here you will be able to connect with potential partners for what happens after the sprint. If you need an incubator, if you need other kind of partners, this is the phase where you start connecting with those if you haven't already. We are going to offer you some options here, but let's work as a community to identify who those options are and make them available and accessible to every one of you. This is what I offer, and I hope you're up for that. And I love the drawing here, freestyle drawings on the screen, very creative. I'm not going to talk you through each of the stages, but just referring you to our website where you will find these explained. And as we get into the preparation phase, which starts very soon for those who have registered already, you will be receiving much more detailed descriptions of these stages. But we're trying to serve you more detailed information when it's time, when the time is right and when you need it, because we don't want to flood you with information that you don't need yet. So we're serving you what you need to be prepared for your next steps. But we try also to keep you informed on the website. So please visit the website and read more about each of these stages. The 12-week at a high level look like this chart, which you will also find on our website. And we have also these dates on the website, and these are the start date, which is currently 19th of February. Just needs a final validation with some of our biggest stakeholders. We want to make sure everybody can make this work. It looks like it, so this is the tentative start date, but I believe in a kickoff on 19th of February. And assuming that that is valid and will work, then you see all the following milestone dates on which are also on the website. So feel free to stop by and see it there. How do you get involved? I mentioned already that there are many roles that you can get involved in. You can choose one or you can choose multiple roles if you feel like it, if you want to invest your time in it, and I hope so. Choose either just to be a participant, either as an individual, and we'll help you to get into a team, or you can bring a team if you want. You can also be an advisor, and some of you have already said, hey, I'm available as an advisor, and some have chosen to sponsor already. We're looking for more sponsorships, and so on. There are different roles. If you feel that you cannot invest time in actively participating, you can choose to be an observer. You're very welcome to do that. You will receive our updates and access the work in progress. There are no fixed requirements to how much time you need to put into this. Essentially, we leave it up to you and your team to find out how much time do you want to invest in designing your ideas and designing your prototypes and so on. It's really up to you. Typically, the more time you put in, probably the more you can get out at the other end of the process. But we also see teams that put in maybe an hour per day, which is not so much in in my terminology, and still get a really interesting set of ideas to present. And if not, if they don't want to move those forward, maybe they find another team that wants to implement it. This is also an option. So if you plan to put in 1 or 2 hours per day as a team, I think that will get you very far. If you want to put in more, I think that will be great for your progress. If you want to put in less, maybe just expect less progress or slower progress, but you can still do it. You can still go through the process that I just explained before. You can register on our website, and what you do here at this stage is just register your interest, essentially. If you have any regrets, you can opt out. So you're registering your interest. That allows us to contact you again and help you to get you into the right kind of team, into the right kind of role, and that's what we want. So you can leave anytime if you want. So nothing should hold you back from registering your interest here on the website. I'll post the links in just a moment to where you find this form. All right, this was a lot of talking for me, and I'm going to check for questions while we hear the next presenter. And the next presenter, and I hope Jabine is still with us. I've seen you online.
I'm still here, Lars.
Amazing, Jabine. Jabine is the Executive Director of Fast Track Institute, and Jabine is going to introduce who Fast Track Institute is and explain a little bit about how we work together here. Jabine, you are
awesome.
Our key sponsor and partner, and a warm welcome, and thank you for being here, Jabine. Over to you.
Thank you, Lars. Thank you. Before I'll just speak very briefly. Before I do, though, I wanted to get some clarification from you, Lars, about the sprint. Yeah. We talked a lot about kids' education, but that it includes adult education, primary, secondary, post-secondary education, any kind of higher education, learning disabilities, tech and vocational training, anything that is related to education. Can you please comment on that?
Yes, we're coming in with the broadest possible definition of education here. We want everybody who wants to participate to propose the scope of work that they're interested in working on. And then we'll form teams around these themes. So it can be any of the segments or the topics that you just proposed. It can be something else as well.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I guess I'll start. I am an Executive Director of Fast Track Institute. My massive transformative purpose is exponential prosperity for all. And I have to comment on what Jerry said about the word consumer. I don't like that word either, also the word user. And I tell my students at the University of Toronto that mass consumption plus mass production equals mass destruction. So to continue, Fast Track Institute is sponsoring this amazing initiative by Lars and the Educate4Life team. And we're grateful to be able to contribute our resources and expose this initiative to our community. For those of you who don't know, Fast Track Institute collaborates with cities and regions around the world on solving grand urban challenges using exponential innovation for 10x outcomes. And the Fast Track process has addressed complex and intractable challenges in, for example, financial inclusion, mobility, air quality, health, and justice. And many of our stakeholders are interested in this area of education, which is a global challenge, obviously. And as Raya pointed out, it's a wicked problem. So when we heard about Lars's ambition to launch this initiative, we stepped up and said we want to contribute and worked with the Educate4Life team and sponsored this initiative so that education can be more universally accessible and inclusive for lifelong learning and more affordable as well as relevant, engaging, and personalized for different types of learning needs. And I want to give a shout out to our friends in Medellin, Colombia, the first fast track city. There's quite a few people here from Medellin, as well as Miami, which is another fast track city. And we at Fast Track Institute would like to help and facilitate and promote the solutions that come from this sprint for implementation and the tools, and highlight existing tools and solutions to our growing community as well. And Lars, once again, this is amazing. Thank you for taking on this ambitious and exciting initiative. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
So am I, Jabin, very much, and we're doing it, and we can do it because of the amazing people who are joining here today. At the end of another busy year, everybody's taking time out to spend it with us, getting to understand what we want to achieve. So I want to thank everybody for that, and thank you, Jabin, for being here and for being a great supporter of Educate for Life, and we look very much forward to do this together. Now, I want to make sure that we answer as many questions as we can, also before we close the call. And I haven't had much time to check for questions in the chat box, but I'll just go through it quickly now. But otherwise, now is a good time. You can unmute yourself and ask questions, and then I'm more than happy to address your questions. Also, if you have comments to anything you've heard, now you are very welcome to open the mic. Jerry?
Yeah, Lars, what is the timing and process for forming up initiative teams around the sprint?
Yeah. So let me just share our website here to show the timeline. I'm bringing it up now here. There you go. If you go to our 12-week sprint page here on the website, what you will see is the timeline, and the team formation will begin. It will begin around 1st of February. So we have the rest of December, and we have all of January to accept registrations. And these the topics that are being proposed from every one of you are being posted on our website, and we'll be reaching out to all of you to have you select your passion project, and based on that we're going to propose team formations. So we have the teams in a proposal stage around 1st of February. And we have until the 19th when we kick off, for everybody to get to meet each other online, check in with each other, see if you feel comfortable in your team, if you want to aim for the same thing. So that gives us plenty of time for the team formation. We're going to guide you in this process, and we have the tools to do that also. I haven't talked about tools. But we have quite some interesting tools to help us collaborate as teams that you're going to work in. This is obviously a global initiative. You come from all parts of the world, which is so enriching and fascinating and fantastic. So you're going, I'm sure most of you, all of you, are going to work together virtually. And it's actually easier than most people think. Right? We tend to be scared away a little bit, or that we cannot get together in a meeting room, but it's actually easier than you think. We're going to give you some hints to how this is done. So don't be afraid of that part. The team formation about finding people who are passionate about the same thing, and bringing you together, and then guiding you step by step through the process. Did I answer your question, Jerry?
Yes, Lars. And you'll see there's a bunch of questions now in the chat. If you want to unshare your screen, you can handle some of those questions.
I will, thank you. All right, can we apply also as a team? Yes, you can. In the registration form on the website, you can select whether you come alone or whether you come as a team. We welcome teams. If you don't have a team, that's where we're going to help you as part of the team formation. We're going to propose some relevant teams for you where you will find it interesting to do your work. So you can come as a team, absolutely. And Sophie is asking, what number of team members is ideal? So I suggest a minimum per team. From our experience, having between 5 to 7 team members is generally what works the best for most teams. Having less than 5, meaning 4 or 3 or even 2, can be challenging because there may be someone out, on a business trip or whatever good reason there can be to be out for a week or 2. So make sure that your team has enough manpower to get through each week and actually make progress. So I would recommend a minimum of 5, though 4 is also possible. If you're more than 7, typically, as this is just my experience, more than 7, it tends to be quite busy, and it can be a bit challenging in some aspects. Although you have more hands on deck to get work done, right? So there's no upper limit, but I do not recommend too large teams. Actually, it can be hard to manage. You might want to divide and conquer, which is fine. Then you need to manage that, and that's a whole different ball game. So no specific limitations from our side. Let's see what other questions here. Yes, Shea is making a very good point here. Maybe your team members need to attend school every day. Actually, we'd love to see some children in the sprint as well, some kids teams, who knows? And this is, I'm actually very keen to make that happen. Kids are really, really good at design sprints, and they're super creative, as we talked about. So if they need to attend school, we need to be respectful of that, and everybody has a daily schedule that needs to continue working over the course of the 12 weeks. So we'll figure that out. Peter is asking, what are the benefits of joining the initiative, for example, in a sprint participant or a coach role? As a sprint participant, I can speak for myself. What I would love to do is find others who are passionate about the same challenge that I'm passionate about, so I can form a team and I can actually do something about it. Right? This is an opportunity to get together as a team rather than struggling alone to fix big problems in our society. Right? That is probably not. I'm not going to be successful alone. I need a team. So this is how I see some of the value in being a participant. If you want to do it just for inspiration or to learn the process, you're more than welcome to do that. We also offer you access to coaches. This is also what Peter is asking. Coaches are already trained in this methodology, so that particular role is not open for participation for everyone. We want to make sure that you actually get coaching based on the methodology we are using here. This is to make sure that we serve you well, we support you the best way we can. But if you're an EXO certified coach, you are more than welcome to join here. Let me see what else. What's the next step from Maria? Next step is to register your interest on our website, and that helps us to understand which role that you have in mind for yourself at this point. And when you do that, we'll be sending you on a regular basis. We're not spamming anyone. We think it's high value content we're sending you away, but that content will be based on the role that you choose when you register your interest. And that's the next step. And in those emails that you'll be receiving, you'll get the guidance for how to get prepared. Also, if you need a team, how that team formation seems to be playing out. And we can also get on a call with you to help you get into the right role. So this is the next step. And I want also to promote a little bit our Facebook page where we can where we share different inspiring articles and videos. And please feel free to do the same as part of our community work. If you find something very inspiring, just put it on our Facebook page, share it with everybody. We'll really appreciate that. Anybody can participate. There are no requirements apart from being generally very interested in working on the future of education. If you're very interested in that, you're more than welcome. That's all we're asking for. I don't know if Rodrigo is marking to ask a question there. If you are, you're welcome to ask. Okay, any questions from anyone that I haven't addressed? If not, there will be more calls coming, community calls, where we will discuss the sprint, we'll discuss the preparations, and as I said, if you have signed up on the website, you'll be receiving information related to your role and the overall sprint. Yes, Lars, Rodrigo?
Yes. Lars, how can we try to blend or to integrate a process that we started already in Medellin with a group of local institutions that participated in part in the original 4 fast tracks. And this one is related to education. We have people interested in the sort of type of education of the future, and we had 5 institutions that have been working with us in the past 5 months, trying to put together a comprehensive fast track for this particular topic. So my question is, how can we integrate the 2 type of initiatives in making sure that there's some synergy and that we can get the best out of the 2 processes? That will be something for you and us to think.
Understood. Thank you for the question. And for Jabin, so I'm going to, if not now, then let's bring in Jabin into that particular conversation and make sure that we analyze this right. Jabin, do you have immediate comments right now to this?
The only comment I would say is this is an open innovation sprint, and for Fast Track Institute, we're kind of looking at this as a model for future fast tracks as well. And we have been talking to our stakeholders in Medellin in particular about becoming involved in this sprint, and we're ready to help implement those solutions within the city. And if they want to sponsor teams or sponsor a fast track, those conversations are ongoing.
Great. So I'm sure we can have a conversation, Rodrigo, specifically to address this.
Yes, that will be very beneficial. Yes.
Sounds good. We'll be reaching out to you and finding out how these things will fit together. Absolutely.
Fine, thank you.
And thank you for being here today. Before we wrap, and it's about time to close, but I wanted to make sure I address all questions. Are there any other immediate questions? Otherwise, you can always contact us through our website, through the Facebook page. You're very welcome to do it, and I've already scheduled calls with several of you, or about to do it, to understand better how you want to get involved. So if there are no additional questions, then I'm going to say thank you so much to all of you for being here today. It means a lot to us. Thank you for the support that you're showing us. Thank you for your participation. Thank you to Raya and Jerry and Jabin for joining us today to inspire us. It's been very inspiring to me, and sharing your experiences and how you see education is going is very important for us. We're all trying to wrap our heads around this education thing and do something about it. So together, I think we can inspire each other as a community. That's what we're here for. And when we are inspired, we're here to empower. And when we have empowered you, the sky's the limit, and we can reach a future of education that will serve us a lot better than many of us see the current education system is. With that, thank you all. I'm going to send out this recording and see you soon. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Lars. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.